Okay, let's unpack this. Seriously, imagine being the most powerful person in the world, ruler of the vast Roman Empire, dealing with wars, plagues, rebellions, just all the endless drama of imperial life.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to picture the sheer scale of it.
You'd think maybe you just want to kick back, Enjoy the luxury, forget the troubles.
Right. Take a break.
But the guy at the top, Marcus Aurelius, he was doing something radically different. While holding all that power, he was like relentlessly focused on cultivating his inner world, pursuing wisdom and peace.
It's this incredible contrast, isn't it? Emperor and philosopher.
Exactly. This paradox, immense power, and this deep pursuit of inner peace. That's what makes his story so, well, fascinating.
Absolutely. And he wasn't some monk retreating from the world either. He was right in the thick of it, immersed in chaos. Yet he sought to guide himself by these really profound philosophical principles. It's kind of the ultimate test, Can philosophy actually work as a practical guide for living, not just abstract thinking?
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're taking a deep dive into the life and philosophy of Marcus Aurelius.
Using his personal journal, the Meditations, as our main window into his mind.
Yeah, which is amazing in itself. And we'll also explore the ancient school of thought that shaped him, Stoicism.
Defining its core ideas, looking at the practical tools it offers.
And seeing how these ancient principles somehow feel incredibly relevant for navigating the pressures of the modern world we all live in.
Our source material gives us a really rich picture for this. We've got, foundational info from Wikipedia on Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism itself.
Right.
Then there's a detailed philosophical breakdown from philosophy.ca, which really gets into the key terms. Very helpful.
Oh, good.
And we have these powerful, almost intimate letters from Seneca to his friend Lucilius, packed with practical advice.
I love Seneca's letters.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And we even get glimpses into how modern figures seem to embody these same Stoic principles today.
It's a really potent mix, isn't it? Giving us the history, the theory, and the real-world application, both ancient and modern. So our mission here is to pull the most valuable insights from this stack. We want to understand Marcus Aurelius's unique perspective on, the order of life.
How he saw his place in the cosmos, how that shaped his actions.
Exactly. And we need to grasp the core tenets of Stoicism as these texts present them.
And most importantly, we'll spend significant time unpacking how you, the listener, can practically use these powerful ideas to navigate your own world.
Yes. And what genuine benefits that can bring to your life right now.
It's really about making this ancient wisdom actionable, finding out what it offers someone living today, facing their own challenges.
Exactly. So where do we begin? With the man himself, I suppose, Marcus Aurelius.
Emperor of Rome, he ruled for nearly 2 decades, from 161 until he died in 180 AD.
And our sources are very clear. His reign was far from easy. That feels like an understatement.
Yeah, probably. When you read about it, it sounds like just constant crisis management.
He inherited an empire dealing with huge military threats. To the east, there was this major war with the Parthian Empire.
Right. Roman forces ended up sacking major cities like Ctesiphon and Seleucia, big campaigns.
And at the same time, or soon after, he was constantly battling or, negotiating with these formidable barbarian tribes along the northern borders.
The whole Danube frontier, Germania. It was relentless pressure.
It wasn't just military stuff, was it?
No, not at all. His reign also saw the rise of Christianity gaining prominence. That presented really complex new challenges for the established social and political order.
How do you deal with that?
Exactly. But maybe the most devastating challenge was the Antonine Plague.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. Terrible.
It broke out around 165 AD. Probably smallpox, maybe measles, brought back by troops returning from the east.
Oh.
It just ravaged the empire. Widespread death, social disruption. Imagine trying to govern through that.
Constant warfare, a major social upheaval with Christianity, and a deadly plague sweeping through everything. It's almost unimaginable pressure.
And on top of these huge external burdens, Marcus was dealing with significant personal struggles too.
Right. The sources mention he was never particularly healthy or strong.
He complained about illness quite a bit. There's this poignant detail from a letter he wrote to his tutor, Fronto, back in 145 AD.
What did he say?
He mentioned suffering from chest pain and an ulcer. Think about that, the most powerful man in the world, writing to his old teacher about his stomach problems.
That makes him very human, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Yet, despite these physical issues, The historian Cassius Dio, who lived back then, specifically praised Marcus
So what?
for behaving dutifully and effectively in his later years in spite of his various illnesses.
Wow.
That really speaks volumes about his character, right? His commitment to duty, his inner strength, allowing him to push through even when his body was failing him.
It's such a powerful separation of the job's demands from his own physical limits. Really sets him apart. His personal life also had complexities. He married his cousin, Faustina, in April 145.
Legally, she was considered his sister after their adoptive father, Antoninus Pius, became emperor. Bit complicated.
Yeah, noteworthy is how the biographer put it, which feels restrained.
Definitely. Yet Marcus himself, in the letters we still have, made only sparing references to Faustina.
Interesting. Because there were later rumors, weren't there, about her? Hostile sources making stuff up.
Yeah, scandalous rumors about infidelity, likely untrue, like the one mentioned in a note about Commodus maybe being illegitimate. Probably just political smears later on.
But Marcus seems to have maintained this quiet, almost stoic acceptance, or just focused on his duty, not dwelling on personal stuff publicly.
Exactly. And then there's the real tragedy of his legacy, which Anne King points out.
Oh, his son, Commodus.
Yeah. Marcus, this model of stoic virtue and self-restraint, he chose his natural son, Commodus, as his successor. And as King notes, Marcus's stoic philosophy was just abjectly abandoned by the imperial line he anointed.
Commodus's reign was notoriously awful, wasn't it? Chaotic, brutal.
A complete contrast to his father's. It's such a harsh reminder, isn't it? Even the most dedicated Stoic couldn't control the external world. Not even the character of his own son, or where the empire went next.
That contrast is really striking. It highlights that Stoic idea, right? You control your intentions, your actions, but not the outcomes, not other people's behavior.
Precisely. Which leads us nicely into how Marcus came to embrace philosophy in the first place. It wasn't like a late life thing.
No, he was exposed early on and stayed deeply committed, even though his tutor, Fronto, wasn't exactly a fan.
Not at all. Fronto, this master orator, he genuinely disdained philosophy, especially the kind Marcus liked.
He warned him against just dabbling, right?
Yeah, said it was better never to have touched the teaching of philosophy than to have tasted it superficially. Strong words.
He even had a pretty cutting take on why Marcus was interested.
He did. Suggesting it wasn't some noble pursuit of wisdom, but just because Marcus was tired of boring work.
Ouch. Referring to the tedious training in rhetoric Fronto specialized in.
Harsh judgment from a teacher. But what's telling is that Marcus, while staying close to Fronto and showing him respect, would ignore Fronto's scruples.
He knew what he was looking for was deeper.
Exactly. It was a way of life, a guide for navigating not just the boring work, but also the terrifying crises he knew he'd face as emperor.
And history seems to have proved Marcus right. Herodian's assessment is incredible praise.
Alone of the emperors, he gave proof of his learning not by mere words or knowledge of philosophical doctrines, but by his blameless character and temperate way of life.
He lived it. He didn't just talk about it.
And Edward Gibbon, the famous historian of Rome's fall, saw Marcus's reign as maybe the peak.
When the empire was governed by absolute power under the guidance of wisdom and virtue. High praise indeed.
And Matthew Arnold, the poet, simply said Marcus proved himself worthy of his position. A position of absolute power used with wisdom and virtue guided by philosophy.
You can even see the weight of all this in how he's depicted. That famous equestrian statue of Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, the bronze one. It's amazing it even survived.
Right. Because people thought it was Constantine, the first Christian emperor, so it didn't get melted down like the others.
Lucky mistake. It's huge, over 11 feet tall in the Capitoline museums now.
And it captures that complexity we're talking about. His hand is outstretched in this gesture of, like, clemency. Mercy to a defeated enemy.
A powerful image of imperial grace.
But look closely at his face. The sources describe a weary facial expression. You can almost feel the burden of constant battles, the challenges of his reign.
It's not like those idealized heroic sculptures of earlier emperors. It shows a ruler marked by experience, by hardship.
It's the emperor and the man grappling with the weight of the world.
It perfectly embodies that duality. Huge external responsibility, clear internal struggle.
And connecting this right back to his philosophy, his meditations.
These private thoughts, never meant for anyone else to see, written often on campaign near the end of his life.
They are the clearest proof of his love for and reliance on Stoic philosophy.
They're not abstract essays, they're personal notes. him wrestling with Stoic ideas in the face of his daily reality.
One source calls him the last great emperor of ancient Rome and suggests he probably attribute that greatness to his love of Stoic philosophy.
These ideas weren't a hobby for him. They were the framework. How he observed the world, made decisions, endured suffering, tried to live virtuously, even as emperor.
So to really understand Marcus and the kind of ruler he tried to be, we absolutely have to get into the Stoic ideas he was working with in those private writings.
Okay, let's dive into some of the core concepts, the key terms our sources define. One of the most fundamental and maybe often misunderstood is virtue.
Yeah, for Stoics, this isn't just about being a good person in the way we usually think.
No, the sources explain it comes from the Greek arbrete, meaning excellency. It's defined as a disposition to live the philosopher's way.
And unlike Plato, who had specific virtues as distinct goods, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance.
For Stoics like Seneca and Epictetus, virtue is the only good, period.
That's radical, isn't it? It means nothing external, not health, wealth, reputation, pleasure. Not even life itself is inherently good.
Only virtue, the excellence of your character, your will, that's the only true good.
So evil then is just, what? The lack of virtue.
Exactly. Simply a lack of virtue. The absence of wisdom, justice, courage, decorum in your disposition and actions.
And the sources point out why virtue is the only good. Because only virtue can never be used for undue gain and immoral purposes.
Right. You can use money or power or intelligence for bad ends, but you can't use wisdom or justice or courage to be wicked. It's intrinsically good.
This understanding leads right to the next key concept, adiaphora.
This term refers to external things that are technically indifferent.
So all the stuff we usually label good or bad. Health, wealth, poverty, illness, reputation, exile, pleasure, pain.
All of it. The Stoics taught these things are not inherently good or bad in themselves. Their value comes only from how you use them or respond to them.
They're just material for virtue to act upon.
Precisely. So wealth itself isn't good. Using wealth generously and wisely is the virtuous act. Poverty isn't bad. Enduring poverty with resilience and dignity is the virtuous act.
It shifts the whole focus from the external circumstance to your internal response.
Yeah.
Your character in action.
And the only thing that is truly, absolutely in our control, according to the Stoics, is our prohairesis.
Which translates roughly as
Will or moral purpose or the faculty of choice. Epictetus really hammered this home. Only will is in our power.
this is like the inner citadel, right? The one place external forces can't touch.
Exactly. And this means that good and evil exist only within this faculty of choice in our intentions, our judgments, our disposition.
Everything else is either in the will of another individual or in the will of nature.
Wow. So you can control your decision to act bravely, but you can't control if that bravery leads to external success or failure.
Which is why, as the sources say, the best indication of an individual's philosophy was not what a person said, but how the person behaved.
Your philosophy shows up in your choices, your will in action.
And cultivating this inner control, this virtuous will, that's the path towards Ataraxia.
Yes, ataraxia. That Greek term for a state of mental tranquility, peace, well-being. An absolute absence of anxieties and troubles.
Being undisturbed by the external world and all its ups and downs.
The Stoics believed you achieved this state by adopting a different view of the world, by aligning your judgments and will with reality and nature.
And what gets in the way of Ataraxia? What blocks that peace?
Passion, or pathos in Greek. These are those excessive emotional impulses triggered by events or our judgments about them.
Like extreme fear, anger, craving, or even like overwhelming joy.
Exactly. Epictetus argued these passions must be eliminated, not because emotions themselves are evil, but because they often induce misery in the long term.
They cloud our judgment, right? Block reason.
Yeah, they prevent correct decisions, make us react violently or impulsively instead of calmly and reasonably.
So the goal isn't to be some kind of unfeeling robot.
No, definitely not. The goal is to reach a state of equanimity or apatheia.
Okay, what's that?
It's a mental state where passions are suppressed, meaning they don't control you. You aren't overly pleased by good news or devastated by tragedies.
But the sources clarify this isn't a lack of empathy, right?
Crucially, no. A Stoic sage would still feel compassion, act justly. But their actions wouldn't be driven by uncontrolled emotional impulses. It's about rational control over destructive emotions.
Allowing for clear thinking and virtuous action.
Exactly. And maybe the most practical key to achieving this equanimity is understanding impression, or phantasiae.
Okay, break that down.
The Stoics taught that the world itself is objective. Events just happen. They don't arrive with little good or bad labels attached.
So suffering, misery, distress, they don't come from the events themselves.
No, they come from our perception or our judgment about those events.
This is the core of Epictetus' teaching, isn't it? It's not the events that upset us, but our judgments about the events.
That's the one, the classic example. Rain on your picnic, same event. One person is miserable, another sees a chance for a cozy afternoon inside.
The rain is neutral. The difference is the judgment.
Right. We don't see objective reality. We see impressions shaped by our beliefs and biases. But here's the kicker, the power. The Stoics realized we can change our impression of things, thus emancipating ourselves from sufferance.
That idea alone is just huge, transformative. It puts the power for peace squarely back in our own minds, not at the mercy of what happens outside.
And finally, let's just note the term proficient or prokopton.
The person's still learning.
Exactly. Someone actively learning and practicing Stoicism, someone on the path of progress. It acknowledges this is a lifelong journey, not an overnight fix.
A journey that needs clear thinking, which is why Stoicism also included logic.
Yeah, Stoic logic was important. Our sources briefly mentioned their focus on arguments, premises, conclusions, syllogisms. It wasn't just about feeling philosophical. Rigorous, clear reasoning was essential.
Okay, so these are the building blocks. Virtue as the only good, externals as indifferent materia, our will as the only thing in our control, seeking tranquility by mastering passions that come from our judgments. How does it all hang together? What's the central theme?
The central thread, the main motto, is living according to nature.
You see that everywhere in Stoic writing. In harmony with nature, in agreement with nature, conformably with nature.
Epictetus was blunt about it. He said anyone who doesn't live by this rule is basically wandering through life entirely deaf and blind to how things really are.
But what did they mean by nature? It wasn't just like trees and birds, right?
No, not just that. The Stoics believed the cosmos, the whole universe, is ordered by a rational principle. Sometimes they called it God, or Zeus, or the Logos, or the will of nature.
And Heraclitus influenced them. The idea that that which contains us is endowed with reason.
Right. And Epictetus connected this cosmic reason to our own inner capacity for reason. He said, but we have reason within us, and it directs us.
Ah, okay. So living according to nature means aligning our individual inner reason, our prohairesis, our will,
with the greater rational order of the cosmos, accepting what's outside our control as part of that natural order.
And focusing our controllable will on acting virtuously within that order.
Yeah, recognizing the natural flow, accepting the inevitable, understanding our place as rational beings in that bigger picture.
And then acting based on reason, wisdom, justice, not being driven by irrational passions or fighting against reality.
This perspective, it requires a certain kind of observation, doesn't it? And getting your ego out of the way.
Which brings us to that interesting Japanese calligraphy idea mentioned in the sources, seikun muga.
Right. Watchful waiting, selflessness, self-renunciation. While it's not Stoic in origin, the ideas definitely resonate.
Watchful waiting. That sounds like observing our initial impressions without immediately reacting or judging. Pausing, seeing clearly.
And selflessness, or self-renunciation, aligns so strongly with the Stoic goal of dethroning the ego. Getting past its endless desires, fears, attachments to external things.
Because transcending the ego lets you see things more objectively, like the impression itself, not through your personal filter of fear or wanting.
Exactly. It frees up the will, prohairesis, to align with the rational order of nature, instead of being enslaved by personal passion.
The idea of sitting quietly, like in Zen, to cultivate that observation and detachment, it feels very compatible with the Stoic aim of clear, rational judgment.
It does. Okay, so this gives us the philosophical framework. Now let's get practical. How did Marcus actually use these ideas, and more importantly, how can we?
The single most powerful tool that jumps out from the sources, rooted in Epictetus, is the power of controlling your judgments.
This is the absolute bedrock. It's not the external event causing suffering, it's the meaning we give it. Our internal judgment, misery, anxiety, distress, they come from how we think about what happens, not from what happens itself.
Epictetus gave such direct advice on this. Like, if someone wrongs you,
remember, they're acting based on their own faulty impression of what's right or good. They are the one hurt or deceived by their false beliefs.
Not you. Unless you choose to be hurt by it.
Right. You shouldn't lose your inner peace because of someone else's ignorance or vice. The task is to actively reframe, to think in such a way that makes the matter more tolerable.
The modern examples really help here. Elif Batuman, drawing on Epictetus.
Yeah, she talks about consciously choosing to ignore small slights. Someone's rude, cuts you off in traffic.
Her approach, inspired by Stoicism, is to think, for such a small price, a moment of annoyance, I buy tranquility by choosing not to react.
That's so practical. I love the bathhouse example she uses too. Also from Epictetus.
Remind me.
He suggested, if you're going to the public baths, anticipate the annoyances beforehand. Expect the splashing, the crowds, the yelling. By picturing the messy reality ahead of time, you prepare your mind. So when it happens, you're not surprised or annoyed. You just accept it. Yep, this is what bathhouses are like.
It's a simple kind of mental preparation, isn't it? Premeditation, so things don't throw you off balance.
Exactly. And the insurance call example is great too. We've all been there, right? The frustrating bureaucracy waiting on hold forever.
Ah, yes.
Now imagine your friend telling you their story about a similar call. You wouldn't think their whole week was ruined or blame them for the company being awful. You'd have perspective.
Ah, I see. The Stoic exercise is to apply that same detachment and perspective when it happens to you.
Yes. By consciously reframing, changing that internal commentary, you massively reduce the power external events have over your emotional state. Doesn't change the event, but changes your experience of it.
Okay, that's huge. What's another powerful application? The sources talk a lot about Seneca and simple living.
Yeah, heavily drawn from Seneca's letters to Lucilius. And Seneca didn't just recommend being frugal, he urged Lucilius to actively test himself.
How so?
By periodically living on the bare minimum, like indoors sleeping on a hard pallet, wear a coarse cloak, eat just hard, grimy bread for days.
That sounds rough. Why?
It wasn't suffering for suffering's sake, it was a deliberate practice, a test of yourself instead of a mere hobby.
And the point was?
To learn firsthand that peace of mind does not depend upon fortune. By experiencing that your basic needs are actually minimal and easily met, you realize that fortune, external luck, circumstances grants enough for what's truly necessary.
You build resilience by proving you can handle discomfort.
Exactly. He even talked about deriving the highest kind of pleasure from simple food after such a test. It teaches you to reduce your needs to a modicum which no unfairness of fortune can snatch away.
It makes you less vulnerable, less afraid of loss.
Precisely. Builds inner security. Seneca's rule on this is super clear. Hold fast to the sound and wholesome rule of life, that you indulge the body only so far as is needful for good health. The body should be treated more rigorously, that it may not be disobedient to the mind.
Wow. Treated more rigorously? He gets specific too, right? Eat, drink, dress, house yourself only for need. Despise useless ornament.
Yeah, he uses great imagery. Understand that a man is sheltered just as well by a thatch as by a roof of gold.
The function is the same.
Yeah.
The fancy stuff just adds vulnerability and cost, not real security or peace.
Mm-hmm. And in letter 5, he pushes back against the idea that Stoics have to look, like, deliberately miserable.
Oh, yeah.
He says philosophy calls for plain living, not for penance. Don't be disgusting or seek attention for being austere. Find a happy medium between the ways of a sage and the ways of the world at large.
So it's more about internal detachment from externals, not necessarily putting on a show of poverty.
Exactly. He uses Demetrius as an example, saying his words were even more powerful because people saw him living simply, reclining without even a cloak to cover him, being a witness to the truth.
So simple living isn't about suffering. It's about liberating yourself from depending on external things, finding contentment within,
Yeah.
making yourself less vulnerable to fortune's ups and downs.
You got it. And one of the biggest external fluctuations we all face, maybe the greatest source of vulnerability, is fear.
The Stoics definitely tackle that head on, especially the fear of death and misfortune.
Seneca called death the last evil. But his argument against dreading it is pretty logical from a Stoic viewpoint.
What was his take?
He says we shouldn't dread it because it must either not come at all or else must come and pass away.
Meaning, if it doesn't come now, you're fine. If it does come.
The fear is over, and your existence as you know it stops. So why dread something that either won't happen yet or, when it does, eliminates the possibility of dreading it anymore?
Huh. That's starkly logical.
He also pointed out how short and uncertain life is. What profit is it to gain a few days or a few years? There is no discharge for us from the moment we are born. He even notes grimly that in his own time, some people cut short their misfortunes by death.
And Marcus Aurelius, constantly facing death on campaign, he used that famous memento mori reminder, right?
Yes, in Meditations, quoted on those modern medallions. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think.
It's not meant to be morbid, is it? We're like a kick in the pants.
Exactly. A powerful call to live fully, virtuously, intentionally now because the future isn't guaranteed.
Seneca also talked about groundless fears, didn't he? Panic fear.
Yeah, he called panic fear the most ruinous and uncontrollable because it's witless, irrational. He describes how the mind, without a clear, rational framework, just fashions for itself false shapes of evil or twists the meaning of neutral things.
And if we let ourselves indulge our fears to the greatest possible extent, he warned.
Life is not worth living, and there is no limit to our sorrows. Grim stuff.
So what was his advice?
First, use prudence, use reason, contemn fear with a resolute spirit even when it is in plain sight. Face it rationally.
And if you can't manage that.
Then he suggests countering one weakness with another. Temper your fear with hope. Remind yourself that the things you dread are uncertain, often sink into nothing, while the things you hope for can also be elusive.
It's not dismissing fear, but using reason and perspective to shrink its power.
He also contrasted different kinds of fear in letter 24. The quiet anxiety about, say, getting sick or running out of money versus the dramatic, spectacular fear of torture, the rack, the stake, being torn apart, burning shirts, horrific imagery.
But his point was,
The effect, harm, or death is ultimately the same. The mind gets caught up in the terrifying spectacle rather than the underlying reality.
in this whole approach, accepting, confronting fear and adversity, that ties into a modern Stoic perspective, doesn't it? Turning adversity into opportunity.
Absolutely. You hear it in those phrases like, got beat, good. Unexpected problems, good.
As one source explains, this isn't just like putting on a happy face, Mr. Smiley Positive guy.
No, it's about accepting the reality of the setback immediately. Okay, this happened, now what? And pivoting to focus entirely on the solution, the path forward.
Take that issue, take that setback, take that problem, and turn it into something good. Using the obstacle as the way.
That's a key Stoic principle. Seeing challenges as opportunities to practice virtue resilience, courage, ingenuity.
And this active engagement with fear and difficulty, it has direct parallels in modern psychology. Exposure therapy.
Right. Donald Robertson, who writes a lot about Stoicism and therapy, notes that the Stoics, especially Seneca, with practices like premeditatio malorum.
The premeditation of evils, imagining bad things happening.
Yeah. They were basically practicing early forms of exposure therapy by repeatedly contemplating potential hardships, poverty, exile, death, illness. They aimed to desensitize themselves.
Build psychological resilience, so if those things actually happened, the emotional shock wouldn't be as overwhelming.
Robertson calls it a powerful strategy. Just like repeated, controlled exposure is used in modern therapy to reduce phobias and anxieties.
Okay, another powerful tool for navigating the world, rooted in internal control. Discipline. Jocko Willink, the former Navy SEAL.
His mantra, discipline equals freedom.
Sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Discipline feels restrictive.
But Willink argues that using positive constraints, routines, schedules, commitments, actually increases your perceived free will and effectiveness.
How so?
He notes that unstructured, free-form days can be paralyzing. Too many choices. Decision fatigue sets in. Pre-scheduled activities, routines. That's the scaffolding that supports getting things done.
And he argues that real freedom, like financial freedom, free time, good health,
you can only achieve these things through discipline. It's about applying structured effort to gain genuine control over your life.
You shared that powerful example from SEAL training, too, about how leaders react under pressure.
Yeah, the good leaders, when things went wrong, immediately looked inward, criticized themselves, asked what they did wrong, took notes.
Whereas the arrogant ones,
the arrogant guys who lacked humility, couldn't take criticism, couldn't self-assess. They blamed others or circumstances.
His takeaway is pretty stark and very Stoic. Stay humble or get humbled.
Humility allows growth. Arrogance blinds you. He also stressed how crucial it is for a leader to detach from their own emotional turmoil.
Right. If I'm raging in my own head, I might miss all of that, what's actually happening. So being able to detach as a leader is critical.
That's pure Stoic equanimity applied to leadership, isn't it? Master your internal state so you can handle external reality effectively.
And related to navigating uncertainty, Derek Sivers has some concise wisdom that echoes Stoic prep.
Expect disaster.
Doesn't sound very cheerful.
No, but it's not pessimism. It's premeditatio malorum. Be ready for things to go wrong. Mentally prepared.
But paired with that expectation is flexibility.
Exactly. How to thrive in an unknowable future. Choose the plan with the most options. The best plan is the one that lets you change your plans.
So, Stoic preparation plus adaptability. Acknowledge you can prepare your mind, but the world outside is still uncertain.
It's a great combo. All these are powerful tools for building that inner fortress, navigating life's currents with more composure and effectiveness, no matter the storms.
Okay, moving beyond just self-mastery, Stoicism also guides relationships and social interaction. We touched on Epictetus. People do wrong based on their mistaken impressions.
And Seneca echoes that don't lose your inner peace over someone else's error.
Seneca writes beautifully, sometimes startlingly, about friendship too, in Letter 3.
True friendship for him means trusting a friend as you trust yourself. Total trust.
He says discuss everything with them, but first judge the person carefully. He criticized Theophrastus for saying judge after making friends.
Seneca flips it. Make him their friend after they have judged him. Choose wisely first.
That's a high bar. For Seneca, real friendship isn't about convenience or mutual gain.
No, it's about finding someone you may die for, someone you'd follow into exile. He calls it friendship run mad, like pure love.
Not for gain or reputation, but for the beautiful object soul of the friend. A bond based on shared virtue and trust.
It's a very elevated view of friendship.
Yet, despite valuing true friendship so highly, Seneca also gives surprisingly cautious advice about social interaction generally. Letter 10.
Yeah, he advises Lucilius to avoid the many, the few, and even the individual. That sounds pretty antisocial.
But that's not really his point, is it?
No, he clarifies it's about protecting your philosophical progress from distraction, corruption, hindrance.
He worries that hanging out too much with people of a different stamp and different aims could pull you off course, especially since life is short.
Exactly. He shares that anecdote about Crates seeing a young man walking alone.
Who says he's communing with himself?
And Crates warns him, be careful, you are communing with a bad man.
Oof. Highlighting the need for self-improvement before solitude is really beneficial. Otherwise, you're just reinforcing bad habits in isolation.
Right. Which connects to his thoughts on applause versus real praise. Letter 66, implied in 7.
He contrasts the loud, unthinking applause for showy speakers in the theater.
With the quiet focus needed for philosophy in the school, philosophy, he says, should be worshipped in silence.
He advises, don't get upset if you don't get popular approval. Don't seek applause from the ignorant.
Don't take pleasure in being praised by people you couldn't genuinely praise yourself. Focus on the subject, the truth, not the style or the crowd's reaction.
And finally, Seneca offers fascinating insights on dealing with power dynamics. Letter 47 uses the master-slave context in Rome, but draws bigger principles.
He states powerfully, respect means love, and love and fear cannot be mingled. Argues masters shouldn't be feared by slaves. Use words, not whips.
And he applies this to rulers or people in power generally. Says they often don the temper of kings, getting easily enraged.
By finding fault, they seize upon opportunities to do harm. They insist that they have received injuries in order to inflict them. He's observing the irrationality and vice that power can enable.
So from a Stoic view, the goal is to observe this without letting it corrupt you, right? Maintain your own virtue, regardless of the injustice you might face.
Exactly. All these interactions, friendship, dealing with crowds, power, they come back to that core Stoic principle. Focus on what's in your power, your judgment, will, actions, and accept what's not others' behavior, external outcomes.
Okay, stepping back, all of this really underlines that Stoicism isn't about reaching some perfect final state and stopping.
Right.
It's a continuous path of progress and self-cultivation.
Right. We, the listeners, are the learner. The sources use that term proficient, Prokopton, for someone on this journey. Seneca saw Lucilius that way, constantly encouraging and pushing him.
Seneca believed the larger part of goodness is the will to become good. Just the intention, the desire to improve and live virtuously, it's already a huge step.
And progress requires consistency. Seneca has a simple test in Letter 35.
To see if you've made progress. Consider whether you desire the same things today that you desired yesterday.
Because a shifting of the will indicates that the mind is at sea, blown around by external things or changing moods, but that which is settled and solid does not wander from its place.
Consistency in your core values, your direction, that's a sign of real progress.
And a crucial practice for building this consistency and self-awareness is self-reflection.
Seneca's daily review, letters 18 and 62 describe it.
Yeah, it's more like a daily review than just emptying your mind. Before bed, find a quiet place, recall the day's events, detail by detail, scene by scene.
And the purpose is?
To evaluate how well you performed as a Stoic. Relive what you said and did or failed to do. Where did you live up to your principles? Where did you fall short?
It's like a continuous practical self-audit, so you can learn and adjust for the next day.
Exactly. Which connects right back to the Stoic view on external goods and what truly belongs to us. Seneca's letter 44 is so powerful on this.
Arguing we should only find glory in what's authentically our own.
Yes, the soul, our virtue, our character. External things, servants, house, farm, income, they're all on the outside.
They can be taken away by fortune, by other people, by time. They aren't really us.
He uses that analogy of a productive vine versus one decorated with gold. The vine's real excellence is its fruitfulness, not the external bling.
He also makes that chilling point about wicked men often only lacking the means to be fully wicked, like a cold snake whose poison is numb but still there.
Highlighting that true character is internal, not dependent on external opportunity or restraint.
And Seneca makes a strong case against the cost of craving these external things.
Yeah, very often the things that cost nothing cost us the most heavily, the quest and acquisition of which have wrested freedom from our hands.
The pursuit of wealth, status, pleasure, it consumes our time, energy, maybe even our integrity. Costs us our real freedom.
And he offers comfort in loss. If you lose some external thing, you will live without it just as easily as you have lived before. You will have less money and less trouble.
Freedom from attachment brings freedom from suffering.
The message is ultimately really empowering. A noble mind is free to all men. According to this test, we may all gain distinction. Philosophy neither rejects nor selects anyone. Its light shines for all.
Your background doesn't matter, only your inner work. He points to Socrates, Cleanthes, the water carrier, Plato,
saying they are all your ancestors if you conduct yourself in a manner worthy of them. You claim kinship through virtue, not blood or money.
This journey of self-cultivation, it can also involve feeling connected to something larger, right? Seneca in letter 41.
Describes feeling a certain intimation of the existence of God in wild, spacious, natural places, deep caves, river sources, hot springs, quiet pools.
Finding the divine in nature's power and beauty.
And he also describes a great soul, someone unterrified in the midst of dangers, untouched by desires, happy in adversity, peaceful amid the storm, as having a divine power, being stirred by a force from heaven.
This hallowed soul interacts with the world, but still cleaves to its origin, God or nature.
Seneca sums up this line of thought. All things are made up of matter and of God. God controls matter. God is more powerful and precious than matter. God's place in the universe corresponds to the soul's relation to man.
That's the Stoic cosmology in a nutshell. And the takeaway.
Let the lower serve the higher. Let us be brave in the face of hazards. Align your lower material self with your higher rational soul, which connects to the divine order.
This perspective, observing this order and your place in it, like Marcus seems to do in Meditations, it provides a powerful framework for enduring hardship and finding meaning.
But the path isn't about reaching perfection and then coasting. Seneca warns in letter 71 against getting too readily satisfied with ourselves.
Accepting flattery, being unwilling to be reformed because we believe ourselves to be the best of men. Smugness is dangerous.
Humility and ongoing learning are key. He offers a test for real wisdom, not just self-satisfaction. The wise man is joyful, happy and calm, unshaken. He lives on a plane with the gods.
He challenges Lucilius and us. Now go, question yourself. If you are never downcast, if day and night your soul keeps on its even and unswerving course, then you have attained to the greatest good.
If not, you are as far short of wisdom as you are short of joy. Ouch. He reminds us that riches and titles, the things most people chase, are merely causes of grief because they're external and insecure.
And finally, this journey often needs guidance. Seneca notes in letter 90 that returning to nature, to a simpler life, is easy unless you've really strayed far.
If you're entrenched in vice and external pursuits, the return is harder. And he stresses the need for teachers. We blush to receive instruction in sound sense, he says.
But if we think it's beneath us to seek a teacher for the art of living well, we shouldn't hope to just stumble upon such a great good by chance.
Our predecessors in philosophy, the earlier Stoics, found the cures for the spirit. Our job is to diligently learn their methods, understand how and when to apply them. We should respect them, draw inspiration.
It really highlights the enduring value of engaging with these ancient texts and the wisdom they hold.
And the legacy of Stoicism is clear, stretching way beyond Marcus Aurelius's Rome. It influenced later thinkers, movements, even the American founding fathers, often through people like Cicero who incorporated Stoic ideas.
And it remains incredibly relevant today, doesn't it? resonating with people in high-pressure fields, entrepreneurs, athletes, military leaders, anyone seeking resilience, discipline, wisdom, courage in this chaotic world.
One of the most compelling modern links explicitly mentioned in our sources is to modern psychology, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and rational emotive behavior therapy, RABT.
The philosophical origins of these widely used therapies can be traced back to the Stoic philosophers like Epictetus. It's a direct line.
That core Epictetus quote, "It's not the events that upset us, but our judgments about the events." That's basically the foundational principle of cognitive therapy.
Identify and change the irrational or distorted thought patterns, the judgments that lead to negative emotions and suffering.
Donald Robertson, a modern expert, sees Stoicism as rational, practical, maybe a Western alternative to Buddhism in some ways, and definitely a precursor to CBT.
He specifically points to Stoic techniques like premeditatio malorum, that premeditation of evils,
And voluntarily practicing hardship, like Seneca advised, as early forms of exposure therapy. Deliberately confronting difficult situations or fears, simulated or real, to build resilience and reduce their power over you.
and we see these principles alive in modern figures mentioned in the sources. Jocko Willink embodying discipline equals freedom, humility, detachment for leadership.
Derek Sivers with expect disaster and choosing flexible plans that Stoic prep and adaptability. Sebastian Junger's work, reporting from war zones, often hitting themes of facing fear, harsh reality, the importance of failure.
And Ronald Pies, the psychiatrist, drawing on therapy cases to show how applying Stoic principles really can lead to tranquility, demonstrating the practical therapeutic value. This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey, from the incredibly tough life of a Roman emperor seeking guidance in philosophy,
Through the core ideas of Stoicism.
to practical tools you can actually apply right now. We've seen how Marcus Aurelius observed the order of life, inevitability, limits of control, inner virtue, and used that to guide his actions.
We've explored the foundations, virtue as the only good, indifference of externals, the power of our will and judgment, how suffering comes from perception, not reality.
And we've really tried to unpack the practical applications. Controlling your judgments, finding freedom in simple living, facing fears, cultivating discipline, self-reflection, seeking wisdom.
The heart of applying this to your life, really, is shifting focus inward, to what's truly in your power. Your thoughts, choices, character. Accepting the external world as it is, building resilience, finding contentment within.
Not in what you possess or control outside, but in the quality of your inner self, untouched by fortune's whims.
And what benefits does this bring? As the Stoics promise, and modern examples suggest, potentially profound tranquility, greater peace of mind, resilience to stress, clarity in decisions, freedom from that endless cycle of craving and fear.
A deeper, more stable contentment from within. And it's a path of continuous progress, right? Always learning, striving to be a better proficient.
Absolutely. To leave you with a final thought, let's loop back to time and life itself. Seneca, in Letter 1, has that striking line. We are dying daily. Life speeds by while we're busy postponing actually living.
And we touched on Marcus Aurelius's remember. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That urgency.
Seneca also urges us to decide what we wish and abide by the decision. He warns most people are just swept along like objects afloat in a river, no direction, no purpose.
So combining these powerful images from our sources, it raises that fundamental Stoic challenge for you, the listener, today.
Are you actively deciding what you wish to prioritize, focusing on your character, your judgments, your actions, the things truly within your power, and are you abiding by that decision?
Or are you letting yourself be simply swept along by external events, others' demands, your own unchecked fears and desires, constantly postponing the life you actually intend to live?
This ancient wisdom, it demands a deliberate choice. Right here, right now, in the present moment.